The 15th century mystery of the disappeared princes in the Tower, the young Edward V, King of England, and his younger brother Richard of Shrewsbury, has inspired the imagination of many throughout the centuries. Books and theories have been written to ascertain who was responsible for their murder. Perhaps the most famous is Shakespeare's play Richard III, in which he accused the king of murdering the princes. But why did this story occur, and what was its significance for the following reigns? On the 9th of April 1483, Edward IV, King of England, died. His 12-year-old son, Edward V, subsequently became King of England, and his brother, Richard, became first in line to the throne. Their uncle, Richard, the Duke of Gloucester, was appointed Lord Protector and vowed his submission to the new king. In May, Richard escorted his two nephews to the Tower of London, the place in which traditionally the king stayed prior to their crowning. The date for the crowning of the new king was constantly changed. In the meantime, Richard claimed the late King Edward IV's marriage to Elizabeth Woodville, mother to the princes, was illegal, for the king had promised and given a pre-contract of marriage to someone else. In light of this, Edward V and his brother were declared illegitimate, and therefore the young king was unfit for the role. The next in line was their uncle, Richard, Duke of Gloucester, who was thus crowned in July and became Richard III. Shortly after, the two youths disappeared. In the summer of 1483, a rumour started spreading in London. It stated that the young Edward V, King of England, and his younger brother, Richard of Shrewsbury, had now been murdered. The bodies of the princes were never found, and the mystery was never resolved. Throughout this entire period, the War of the Roses raged between the Yorks and the Lancasters over the right to the throne. The York leader, Richard III's debated accession to the throne renewed the struggle for the throne. During the Battle of Bosworth Field in 1485, Henry Tudor, the leader of the Lancasters, killed Richard III. Henry was subsequently crowned and became Henry VII, King of England. From the beginning, Henry's reign and claim to the throne was significantly weak. To consolidate his power and avoid the further division of the English people, he married Elizabeth, the daughter of the York King, Edward IV. Henry re-legitimized Elizabeth and her brothers. The vacuum that was created by the disappearance of the princes encouraged many claimants to the throne to come forward, creating a new threat for the king. The English people perceived the two princes as the emblem and symbol of the now disappeared York monarchy, and some believed and gave their support to such pretenders. One of these pretenders was Perkin Warbeck, who claimed he was the disappeared Prince Richard of Shrewsbury. He acquired significant support from Yorkist sympathizers, which included several highly placed royal officials. In 1495, he attempted an uprising against the king. However, in 1497, he was captured and detained in the Tower of London. He confessed to being an impostor and was killed. In 1495, Henry VII passed the Treason Act, which defined who was a traitor to the king. Following the enigmatic vanishing of the princes, the blame was pointed at their uncle, Richard III, King of England, who acceded to the throne following their disappearance. The blame was also pointed at Henry Tudor, who would later become Henry VII, but whose claim to the throne was weak. Both had an interest in the disappearance of the two young princes. Aware of the blame some pointed towards him for the death of the princes, King Henry attempted to deflect such claims. A few years following Henry's death, Thomas More wrote The History of King Richard III. In it, he attempted to strengthen the Tudor position, blaming Richard III for the disappearance. Shakespeare's play Richard III is in the same vein as this, for he wrote it under a Tudor reign. In fact, it seems that to consolidate their power, the Tudors had to, and were ultimately successful, in redirecting the blame at the losing York side. Perhaps more interesting than finding the actual culprit is the understanding of what this story entailed in a devised England. The story of the princes in the Tower shows what happens when uncertainty looms over the king's legitimacy to rule, and the history-changing powerful measures the king had to take to strengthen his position.